As the first rays of dawn touch your window, your soul feels the soft reminder that God never left your side. Even in the silence of the night, when doubts tried to echo louder than your faith, His light was preparing to rise again. Today, through the gentle warmth of Psalm 27, your heart begins to remember that the Lord is your light and your salvation. Not in theory, but in truth that breathes life into weary places. You've faced moments where shadows felt stronger than promises. Yet, the very fact that you woke up this morning is proof that grace didn't fail you. The Lord never sleeps nor slumbers, Psalm 121:4. While you rested, His hand was upon your story, turning unseen pages toward new beginnings. Every breath you take right now is a whisper of hope, declaring, "You're still chosen, still protected, still loved." There's a reason your heart feels this quiet stirring today. Hope doesn't rise from circumstances. It rises from remembrance. When you remember who your God is, fear loses its authority. When you remember what He has done, anxiety finds no room to rule. And when you remember what He has promised, even the unknown becomes sacred ground. "For I know the plans I have for you," says the Lord, "plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Jeremiah 29:11. Let this morning become a sacred pause, a space where your soul exhales all the weight it carried through the night. You don't need to understand everything right now. You only need to rest in the truth that God is already in your tomorrow. Psalm 46:5 reminds you, God is within her, she will not fall. God will help her at break of day. That's not just poetry, it's divine timing. At the break of day, this very hour, help begins to unfold in ways you couldn't imagine. Take this morning as a gentle invitation to breathe again, to lift your eyes, not to the storm, but to the sunrise. The light that touches your window is the same light that touches your heart, and it carries a promise. You will rise again. Tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time does your morning begin today? There are mornings when your strength feels fragile, almost invisible. Yet in those fragile places, God's power becomes most visible. You may not feel strong, but that's exactly where His grace rests. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. 2 Corinthians 12:9. That means the moments that make you tremble are often the ones shaping your unshakable faith. You've been through storms that left you wondering if peace would ever return. But notice something. You survived them. Every tear that fell was seen, every silent prayer was heard, and every broken piece is still being gathered by the one who restores. He is not rebuilding your life to how it was before. He's rebuilding it stronger, deeper, and anchored in love that cannot be moved. Psalm 27:13 says, "I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living." Those words are not distant promises. They are today's reality waiting to unfold before your eyes. You may not see the full picture yet, but your heart is learning to trust what it can't see. Trust isn't built in answers, it's built in surrender. When you release control, when you stop trying to carry what only God can hold, your hands become free to receive peace. Isaiah 26:3 reminds you, "You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast, because they trust in you." Let that peace be your armor today, not the absence of struggle, but the calm assurance that you are not alone within it. Even in your delays, hope is not idle. Hope is active. It keeps breathing, waiting, believing that what God began, He will finish. He doesn't forget the prayers whispered through tears. He doesn't overlook the faith that trembled, but refused to give up. He sees the small acts of endurance, the way you still choose kindness, the way you still believe that joy will return. This morning, remember, you are not behind. You are exactly where grace meets you, here, now, at this hour, in this season. The Lord is your strength, not because you have everything under control, but because He holds everything that you can't. If this word touched your heart today, write in the comments, "My hope is rising again." Let's fill this morning with faith together. Every soul reaches a season where it must learn how to rest, not because everything is calm, but because rest becomes an act of trust. There's a sacred strength found in the stillness, not the absence of movement, but the quiet awareness that divine hands are already shaping what you cannot fix. Life doesn't always offer explanations. Yet within the silence, faith begins to whisper, "You are held, not forgotten." The heart often wants to run toward answers, but God invites it to remain still enough to hear His presence. "Be still and know that I am God." Psalm 46:10. That command isn't a restriction, it's a rescue. When noise fades and fear loses its echo, something gentle begins to rise inside, a steady peace that doesn't depend on what happens next. It's in that calm space that courage begins to bloom again, the kind that allows you to breathe even when outcomes are unclear. The valleys you've walked through weren't proof of weakness. They were invitations to grow roots deeper than circumstance. A tree standing through storms isn't untouched by the wind. It simply learned that endurance grows underground, hidden from sight. Likewise, your resilience is being formed in unseen places. Those who trust in the Lord are like Mount Zion, which cannot be shaken but endures forever. Psalm 125:1. That's the kind of stability born not from ease, but from intimacy with the one who never changes. This morning, your heart doesn't need perfection. It needs permission. Permission to stop striving, to breathe, to remember that grace doesn't require performance. The gentle rhythm of life begins to sound different when you realize you are loved before doing anything to deserve it. The dawn isn't rushing, it unfolds slowly, painting the sky with patience. In the same way, divine timing is unfolding around you, step by step, moment by moment. Sometimes answers hide behind delay, not because heaven is silent, but because the delay is preparing your capacity to receive. The waiting season is sacred. It's where fear turns into wisdom, where surrender matures into peace. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. That single truth is enough to calm an anxious mind, because the battle isn't yours to manage, it's His to finish. Let today be a quiet declaration that rest is not giving up. It's giving in to the love that carries you. You don't need to understand the how. You simply need to stay open to the what. The unseen goodness still forming beyond the horizon. When faith holds steady, even the smallest breath becomes a prayer that reaches eternity. There are moments when your heart stands at the edge of uncertainty, looking at what feels like an ocean of impossibilities. The waves seem louder than your prayers, and the distance between where you are and where you long to be feels endless. Yet, right there, faith begins its quiet work. It doesn't erase fear instantly. It learns to speak louder than fear's voice. It chooses to believe, even with trembling hands. Psalm 27:3 reminds you, "Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident." Confidence in this verse isn't built on circumstances. It's rooted in relationship. The psalmist doesn't deny that battles exist. He simply knows who stands beside him in the midst of them. And that is where your peace begins too. When your confidence shifts from your own strength to divine presence, fear loses its grip. Every unseen struggle of your mind, every worry, comparison, regret, and secret sorrow meets the steady gaze of a father who refuses to leave. His love doesn't flinch when you doubt. It draws closer. His grace doesn't shrink when you stumble. It strengthens you to rise again. Faith isn't pretending to be fine. It's choosing to stand when everything tries to make you sit down in despair. There's a powerful truth that unfolds when the soul stops fighting against fear and starts surrendering it instead. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. Psalm 56:3. Notice the shift. The verse doesn't say if fear comes, but when. Fear will appear, but it doesn't have to stay. The more you place your trust in God's hands, the less room there is for panic to live in your heart. The same hands that shaped the stars hold your future, and nothing escapes His care. Take a deep breath and let this reality settle. You are already equipped for the challenges ahead. Every scar, every unanswered question, every delay has trained you for this moment. The spirit that lives within you is not timid or frail. For God gave us a spirit not of fear but of power and love and self-control. 2 Timothy 1:7. That verse is not just encouragement, it's identity. You were created to walk in power, to love deeply, to remain calm under pressure because divine peace anchors your inner world. This morning, choose to face what frightens you with grace instead of panic. The darkness you feel pressing against you is only temporary. Dawn always follows. Faith is not the absence of struggle. It's the determination to keep your eyes fixed on what light promises, even while standing in the shadow. Every battle that tries to break you can also build you, shaping a courage that is quiet but unshakable. There's a sacred rhythm in waiting, a space where heaven seems quiet, yet something invisible unfolds behind the scenes. The human heart doesn't enjoy waiting, but divine timing never wastes it. Each delay, each unanswered prayer carries a hidden purpose, one that stretches faith beyond impatience and into endurance. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Psalm 27:14. These words don't call you to passive stillness. They invite you into active trust. Waiting becomes holy when your perspective shifts from "why hasn't it happened yet" to "what is God forming in me as I wait?" Perhaps the delay is shaping wisdom, or teaching you how to recognize peace instead of pressure. Maybe it's preparing your heart to receive what once would have overwhelmed you. God's pauses are not punishments, they are preparation. Every season that feels slow is still sacred ground, even when progress isn't visible. There is beauty in the unnoticed moments. The mornings when you rise weary but still whisper gratitude, the afternoons when faith feels small yet refuses to vanish, the evenings when tears fall quietly but end in surrender instead of bitterness. Heaven records every act of perseverance. Let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Galatians 6:9. That proper time is never late, even when it feels delayed by human standards. Sometimes God hides answers in the very places you avoid. In silence, in slowness, in surrender. It's easy to worship when miracles appear instantly, but it's deeper worship to remain steadfast when miracles are still in motion. Hope matures there, learning to breathe without seeing results, learning to rest even when the night is long. When your faith outlasts your timeline, heaven calls it maturity. This process isn't meant to break you, but to purify your trust. Waiting teaches your heart to separate the noise of the world from the whisper of truth. It teaches you to value presence more than outcome, and peace more than proof. When you stop measuring your worth by speed, you begin to notice grace in the pauses. Grace that allows you to slow down, breathe deeply, and see beauty you once missed. Look back for a moment. Every promise fulfilled in your life once lived in waiting. The breakthrough you celebrated once began in uncertainty. What felt delayed before now feels perfectly timed in hindsight. That's the rhythm of divine wisdom. It doesn't rush, but it always arrives right on time. Psalm 37:7 says, "Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways. Others may move faster, but your story moves faithfully. The same God who held you in past seasons will hold you through this one. Waiting is not wasted when love leads it. As long as your heart stays open, the story will continue unfolding in divine order. Quietly, beautifully, and at exactly the right moment. Strength is often misunderstood. Many imagine it as something loud and visible, a force that conquers mountains or silences storms. Yet the strength God nurtures within you doesn't always appear heroic. Sometimes it looks like choosing kindness when you are tired, or forgiving someone who never apologized. Sometimes it's simply getting out of bed when your heart feels heavy. That quiet endurance, unseen by most, is sacred strength, the kind that heaven applauds. Psalm 18:32 declares, "It is God who arms me with strength and keeps my way secure." Notice how strength is not earned but given. It doesn't come from sheer willpower or constant control. It comes from reliance. Every time you admit your weakness, you make space for divine power to flow. When you release your need to appear strong, God begins to show what true strength looks like. The kind that is gentle yet unbreakable, steady yet tender. There have been moments when you've questioned whether you could continue, when life's weight pressed too deeply on your shoulders. But even in those times, something within you refused to collapse completely. That wasn't coincidence. It was grace standing quietly beside you. The same grace that kept your breath steady is the grace that will lift you again. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Isaiah 40:29. These words are not poetic exaggerations. They are promises fulfilled in silence. You don't need to force your healing or rush your progress. Growth rarely happens in noise. It happens in the quiet, where no one sees the roots forming beneath the surface. Think of how a seed spends time underground before it ever touches sunlight. That hidden process doesn't mean it's forgotten. It means it's being prepared. In the same way, God works beneath the visible layers of your life, building character that will sustain your destiny. Your story is not defined by moments of collapse, but by moments of rising. Even when you feel drained, your persistence becomes a testimony. Others may never see the prayers you whispered at midnight or the courage it took to keep believing through disappointment, but heaven saw it all. The strength being formed in you is the kind that endures, that bends but does not break. It is the quiet power of a soul that refuses to surrender to despair. Let this morning remind you that strength is not measured by noise or visibility. It's measured by the faithfulness that endures unseen. The same Spirit that raised Christ from the dead lives within you. Romans 8:11. That means the energy of resurrection itself breathes inside your weakness, turning exhaustion into endurance and fear into resilience. So take this moment not to prove your strength, but to recognize it. You've made it this far for a reason. Every trial has shaped a deeper layer of wisdom, patience, and grace within you. The strength that once felt hidden will soon shine quietly through your peace, not because life became easier, but because you became stronger in faith. In one sentence, how would you describe what true strength means to you? I'd love to read your reflection below. There are seasons when night feels endless, when silence seems heavier than any sound, and prayers linger without answers. Yet even the longest night has a boundary. Morning always arrives, though never rushed, always deliberate, always certain. The human heart forgets this sometimes. It sees darkness as permanence when, in truth, it is only a passage. Psalm 35 says, "Weeping may stay for the night, but rejoicing comes in the morning." Those words are more than comfort. They are a divine law written into creation. Every sunrise carries proof that endings can turn into beginnings. The light that breaks through your window doesn't erase the night that came before it. It transforms it. The shadows that once terrified you become the backdrop where grace reveals its radiance. The pain you endured becomes the soil where compassion begins to grow. Each scar becomes a story of survival that speaks louder than despair. God never wastes a wound. He transforms it into wisdom that guides the next step. There were nights when you felt alone, when fear pressed like cold air against your chest. But even then, divine presence never left the room. The stillness that surrounded you was not absence, it was preparation. In the unseen, the Creator was crafting a new chapter. The dawn you are witnessing now is not random. It is the response to prayers that once seemed unanswered. The Lord will be your everlasting light, and your days of sorrow will end. Isaiah 60:20. That promise doesn't fade with circumstance. It anchors your soul in every transition. Sometimes the most powerful faith isn't found in loud declarations, but in quiet endurance. It's in the moment you choose to believe that light still exists, even when you can't yet see it. Hope is not a feeling, it's a choice made in the dark. The same God who separated light from chaos in Genesis is still doing the same in your heart today. He is dividing fear from faith, confusion from clarity, exhaustion from renewal. The morning light is God's way of saying, you made it through. Even if nothing around you has changed yet, something within you has shifted. You are no longer fighting against the night. You are walking toward the dawn. Every step you take toward faith weakens the grip of fear. Every moment you choose gratitude over despair adds another flame to your inner light. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. Isaiah 9:2. That light is not distant. It lives within you. So as you breathe in this new day, remember that no darkness is strong enough to extinguish what God has ignited inside you. The same power that raised the morning over the horizon now rises in your soul. It may come gently, but it comes with certainty. The night is not the end. It's the transition toward awakening. You are standing at the edge of renewal, and this time, the light will not fade. Courage doesn't always shout. Sometimes it appears in soft, trembling voices that refuse to give up even when fear echoes louder. True bravery rarely looks dramatic. It often looks ordinary, like choosing to believe again after disappointment, like showing kindness in a season of uncertainty, or like praying one more time even when heaven feels quiet. That quiet persistence is not weakness. It's divine courage disguised as daily endurance. Psalm 31:24 declares, "Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord." That strength isn't about hiding your emotions or pretending you're fine. It's about allowing faith to stand even while your hands shake. Courage is born when the heart decides that fear will not have the final word. It's when you stop asking, "What if I fail?" and begin to whisper, "What if God shows up in ways I don't expect?" Every act of courage begins with a small decision: to stand, to continue, to believe that grace will meet you again. Sometimes that decision feels insignificant, yet heaven sees it as sacred. When David faced Goliath, he didn't rely on armor, he relied on faith. The same principle applies to your battles today. You might not have all the answers, but you carry something greater. A steady assurance that divine presence walks beside you through every valley and mountain. The most courageous people are not those who never felt fear, but those who refuse to be ruled by it. Courage begins when you admit, "I'm scared," and still choose to take the next step. That's why God reminds his children again and again, "Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Joshua 1:9. This promise has no expiration date. It covers every path you'll ever walk, even the ones that feel uncertain or unfamiliar. There will be moments when you doubt your capacity to endure. Yet every time you rise after being pushed down, every time you choose to forgive, every time you choose to love when bitterness would be easier, you display a courage heaven celebrates. Courage is not the absence of wounds. It is the decision to keep your heart soft despite them. The world teaches that strength comes from hardness, but God teaches that true strength is tenderness that survives the storm. As the morning unfolds, take a moment to honor how far you've come, the courage you've shown in silence, in exhaustion, in quiet faith. It all matters. You are not defined by your failures or your fears. You are defined by the endurance that kept you standing through them. Even now, divine grace continues to whisper strength into your weary places, reminding you that the story isn't over. There's still light ahead, still mercy unfolding, still purpose in your path. You may not feel fearless, but you are not without courage. The one who called you by name walks beside you, turning your trembling steps into testimony. And in time, you will look back and realize what felt like survival was actually transformation. Trust is one of the hardest things to rebuild once it has been shaken. Life has a way of teaching through disappointment. People change, circumstances shift, and promises sometimes break. But divine faithfulness never wavers. While human trust depends on consistency, spiritual trust is built on surrender. Psalm 27:11 says, "Teach me your way, Lord. Lead me in a straight path because of my oppressors." Those words carry more than a plea for direction. They express a longing for stability in a world that keeps moving beneath your feet. To trust again is to admit that you don't control everything, yet still choose to walk forward. It is the quiet bravery of opening your heart after it's been bruised. Trust doesn't mean forgetting what hurt you. It means refusing to let the pain dictate your future. When faith becomes wounded, healing often comes in whispers, not in loud miracles. God doesn't demand instant belief. He patiently restores it one moment at a time. Each time you decide to hope again, even in uncertainty, you are rebuilding the bridge between your fear and His faithfulness. Proverbs 3:5 reminds you, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding." That invitation calls you to release your need for clarity and embrace divine wisdom instead. Understanding may comfort your mind, but trust comforts your soul. Sometimes trust looks like taking small steps, praying even when your heart feels distant, showing gratitude when the outcome is unclear, choosing to believe that love still surrounds you despite what you've lost. These small steps may seem fragile, yet they move mountains in the unseen. The same God who calms seas is more than capable of calming your anxious thoughts. When you think about the seasons that shaped you, notice how many of them began in confusion but ended in clarity. What once felt like detours eventually led to purpose. The Lord makes firm the steps of the one who delights in Him. Though he may stumble, he will not fall, for the Lord upholds him with His hand. Psalm 37:23-24. Every path you've walked, even the painful ones, has been guided by unseen mercy. Learning to trust again is not about pretending that you never doubted. It's about realizing that doubt never had the power to destroy faith, only to refine it. Faith purified by disappointment becomes resilient. It no longer depends on feelings or circumstances. It rests in the certainty that God's character never changes. Even when everything else shifts, His promises remain anchored in eternal stability. So let your heart breathe again. You don't have to rush healing or force certainty. The same hands that carried you through yesterday will carry you through today. And slowly through grace, trust will rise again. Not fragile, but wiser, deeper, and stronger than before. Peace is not the absence of struggle. It's the steady presence of divine assurance in the middle of chaos. The world offers temporary calm, brief moments of distraction, comfort that fades when noise returns. But the peace that flows from God is different. It doesn't depend on external balance. It begins within, anchored in the unchanging nature of His love. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, and do not be afraid." John 14:27. That promise means your soul can remain still even when storms rage around you. True serenity is not fragile, it is rooted in something eternal. Life will always carry uncertainty, but you can learn to carry peace through it. This peace is not fragile silence, it's strength clothed in gentleness. It whispers that even when everything shakes, your foundation remains unmoved. Think of how a river keeps flowing regardless of what falls into it, leaves, stones, or rain. It moves forward, unbothered, finding its way around every obstacle. The peace God gives works the same way. It flows through the cracks of confusion, fills the empty spaces of worry, and keeps moving toward purpose. Philippians 4:7 describes it beautifully. The peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. That peace doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It arrives in the middle of imperfection. There were days when your heart was restless, trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You searched for calm in places that only deepened your exhaustion. Yet even then, God was near, whispering through the noise, "Be still. I've got this." Peace doesn't always enter as a feeling. Sometimes it begins as a decision, a conscious act of trust that chooses stillness over striving. When you stop fighting for control, you begin to experience the calm that cannot be taken from you. This kind of tranquility doesn't deny pain, it transforms it. It teaches your heart how to stand in tension without breaking. You may still face uncertainty, but you'll carry calm within it. The storms no longer define your direction. The one who walks upon the waves does. You will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are steadfast because they trust in you. Isaiah 26:3. The more your focus returns to divine constancy, the less power external chaos holds. Even when everything changes, this peace remains the unshakable ground beneath your feet. It becomes a sanctuary within you, a quiet confidence that whatever comes, grace is already present. Peace doesn't mean nothing hurts. It means nothing can destroy what is holy inside you. So breathe deeply. Let that stillness settle over your mind and heart like sunlight over water. You don't need to chase it, you already carry it. The world can't give it, and nothing can steal it. Gratitude is more than a polite response to blessings. It is a spiritual weapon that transforms perception. When the heart learns to give thanks not only for what it understands, but also for what it can't yet explain, peace deepens. Thanksgiving realigns your focus. It shifts your gaze from absence to abundance, from fear to faith. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good. His love endures forever. Psalm 107:1. These words are not simple encouragement. They are divine strategy. Gratitude anchors you in the truth that even when life feels unstable, love remains unchanging. There's a hidden power in thanking God before you see the outcome. It's easy to praise when everything aligns, but it's sacred when you praise amid uncertainty. Every thank you, whispered through tears, becomes a declaration of trust, a quiet way of saying, "I believe you're still working behind the curtain of my confusion." Gratitude doesn't deny pain. It gives it purpose. It turns loss into soil where new growth can bloom. Consider how morning light filters through clouds. The brightness doesn't remove the gray. It moves through it, revealing beauty within imperfection. Gratitude works the same way. It doesn't erase hardship. It illuminates grace hiding inside it. Philippians 4:6-7 reminds you, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God." The peace that follows doesn't come because situations change. It comes because your heart's position has changed. Every time you practice gratitude, your perspective begins to heal. Anxiety loses its hold when appreciation fills the soul. When you thank God for strength instead of focusing on struggle, that strength multiplies. When you thank Him for His presence instead of obsessing over absence, His nearness becomes tangible. Gratitude draws you closer to the divine heartbeat, the rhythm where contentment and trust live together. Remember the story of the 10 lepers in Luke 17:11-19. Only one returned to thank Jesus, and that one was not just healed, he was made whole. Gratitude doesn't merely bring restoration, it completes it. Healing may begin with faith, but wholeness blooms through thanksgiving. When you acknowledge grace, you create space for even more of it to enter. Perhaps this morning you can think of countless things that didn't go as planned. Yet even here you can find reasons to whisper thanks. For the breath you take, the sunrise that greets you, the love that still reaches you through unexpected ways. Each moment of gratitude builds a spiritual shield around your heart. It protects your mind from fear, keeps your spirit tender, and opens your eyes to daily miracles that often go unnoticed. Gratitude doesn't change the past, but it transforms how you carry it. It doesn't erase difficulty, but it infuses your memory with grace. When thankfulness becomes your rhythm, even ordinary mornings turn into sacred encounters. Joy doesn't always return in bursts of laughter or sudden ease. Sometimes it tiptoes back through the cracks of ordinary life. It shows up quietly, in a sunrise after a restless night, in a kind word from a stranger, or in the sudden realization that you're breathing freely again after a long season of heaviness. Joy is not a reward for perfection. It is the fruit of presence. It blooms when your heart finally recognizes that God has been near all along. Psalm 16:11 reveals this truth. You make known to me the path of life. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Joy doesn't depend on the absence of pain. It grows from the awareness of companionship. When you realize that divine love has walked beside you through every valley, your soul begins to smile again, even before circumstances improve. The same presence that sustained you in sorrow now becomes the light guiding you back toward delight. You've spent time in valleys where laughter felt foreign, where every step felt mechanical, where your prayers sounded like echoes fading into distance. Yet even there, something sacred was happening. Suffering stripped away the unnecessary, revealing the essence of what endures. Faith that doesn't vanish under pressure, hope that doesn't die in the dark. Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Psalm 126:5. Tears are not wasted. They water the soil where joy will soon rise again. Joy doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. It might begin as a small warmth in your chest, a gentle assurance that life isn't finished with you. It's the sudden gratitude for breath, the comfort in realizing that peace feels closer now than it used to. Sometimes joy is not the destination. It's the quiet road leading you there. And the more you walk in awareness of grace, the clearer that road becomes. Every act of trust, every whisper of gratitude, every moment of forgiveness paves that path. The world often confuses joy with happiness, but joy is deeper. Happiness depends on what happens. Joy depends on who holds you. When everything falls away, joy remains because it flows from eternal sources. Though the fig tree does not bud and there are no grapes on the vines, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. Habakkuk 3:17-18. This is the joy that endures storms, a steady flame that refuses to die. So if your laughter still feels distant, don't rush it. Joy is not gone. It's rebuilding its home inside you. Each new morning is a reminder that sorrow never has the final word. The one who authored your story knows how to rewrite endings into beginnings, turning ashes into beauty, silence into song. Let your heart open to joy again. Not the shallow kind that fades with circumstance, but the rooted joy that grows from faith, peace, and gratitude combined. You are not merely surviving, You are awakening to the rhythm of divine renewal. The dawn you see today carries the promise that laughter will visit again, and when it does, it will feel deeper, stronger, and more real than before. Love is not a fragile feeling. It is the essence of the divine flowing through every heartbeat. Long before you understood faith, love was already carrying you. It is the thread that ties together every lesson, every loss, every beginning. The Lord is compassionate and gracious, slow to anger, abounding in love. Psalm 103:8. That abounding love is not a concept to admire from afar. It's a reality meant to be experienced, lived, and shared. When love becomes your language, everything changes. You begin to see differently, respond differently, even breathe differently. Anger no longer dictates your tone, pride no longer shapes your choices, and fear no longer defines your limits. The more you dwell in divine affection, the more your heart becomes a mirror of heaven's patience. Love refines your soul in ways discipline never could. It softens what life tried to harden. There were times when love felt distant, when people failed you, when kindness wasn't returned, when your giving heart seemed unnoticed. But love's origin isn't found in human consistency. It flows from the heart of God. 1 John 4:19 reminds you, we love because He first loved us. That means you were loved before you succeeded, before you prayed, before you believed. Every breath is evidence that grace preceded performance. When the soul truly grasps this, forgiveness becomes natural. You stop holding grudges, not because others deserve it, but because peace does. You stop chasing validation, not because you no longer care, but because you found where worth truly resides. Divine love reorders everything. It teaches you how to give without fear and how to receive without shame. Even the hardest moments begin to soften under this truth. Pain loses its bitterness when filtered through compassion. The disappointments that once felt final become lessons in endurance. When you start seeing through love's lens, people are no longer enemies. They are reflections of the same grace that rescued you. Ephesians 4:2 captures it beautifully. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. This kind of love is not sentimental, it's powerful. It doesn't just comfort, it transforms. It silences accusations, rebuilds dignity, and awakens courage in tired hearts. Love teaches your soul how to breathe in harmony with eternity, how to trust, how to let go, how to begin again. And when love fills you completely, fear no longer has a home. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. 1 John 4:18. The anxieties that used to dominate your nights begin to fade under the light of perfect affection. You start to live freer, laugh easier, and walk lighter because you know that nothing can separate you from the one who calls you beloved. Let this morning be your reminder that love is not distant. It's already here, surrounding and sustaining you. Every sunrise is heaven's way of saying, you are still loved, still chosen, still seen. Forgiveness is one of the most courageous acts a soul can perform. It is not a denial of pain. It is a declaration that pain will not control the rest of your story. Many imagine forgiveness as a gift offered to another person, but it is first a liberation for yourself. Holding on to resentment is like carrying fire in your hands. You're the one who gets burned. Psalm 103:12 reveals the heart of divine mercy. As far as the east is from the west, so far has He removed our transgressions from us. That's not symbolic exaggeration. It's the blueprint of how grace works. Complete release, total restoration. Forgiveness doesn't always begin with feeling ready. Sometimes it begins with deciding you no longer want bitterness as your companion. It's not about forgetting. It's about refusing to relive the same wound every day. Each time you choose release instead of revenge, you take back your power. That's why forgiveness is not weakness. It's spiritual strength in motion. It's the courage to build peace where pain once lived. There are moments when forgiveness feels impossible. Betrayal cuts deep, words linger, and silence hurts. But when you remember that your own heart has been forgiven beyond measure, compassion begins to rise where resentment once grew. Bear with each other and forgive one another if any of you has a grievance against someone. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Colossians 3:13. You forgive not because the other person earned it, but because grace demands consistency. The same grace you receive daily must also flow through you. Forgiveness doesn't mean trust will instantly return. or that boundaries disappear. It simply means your peace is too valuable to be held hostage by anger. Every time you let go, the weight that once pressed on your soul begins to lift. You start to notice colors brighter, breaths deeper, laughter freer. Resentment drains energy. Mercy restores it. Think of it like unclenching your fists after a long time. The release may ache at first, but freedom always follows. You make room for healing to enter, for love to breathe again, and slowly, what once hurt begins to lose its power. Isaiah 43:18-19 says, "Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" That's not an invitation to erase memory, but to redirect focus toward renewal. When you forgive, you echo the heart of heaven. The act itself becomes a prayer, silent, powerful, eternal. It tells the universe that love has triumphed over offense, that peace has conquered bitterness. The person who wounded you may never apologize, but your decision to release still matters. It writes freedom into your story and restores harmony to your spirit. Forgiveness doesn't change the past, but it transforms the atmosphere of your future. It clears the path for blessings to flow, for relationships to mend, and for your soul to rediscover joy unburdened. When your heart forgives, your faith breathes deeper, because nothing reflects divine love more clearly than mercy given freely. There are valleys that no one volunteers to walk through, the ones filled with uncertainty, silence, and shadows that stretch longer than your courage. Yet it is in those low places that faith proves its depth. The mountaintop inspires you, but the valley shapes you. Psalm 23:4 declares, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." That promise is not just for dark seasons. It's for the human journey itself. You were never meant to live untouched by hardship. You were meant to learn who walks beside you in the middle of it. Faith doesn't remove valleys. It transforms how you move through them. When you can't see the path ahead, faith becomes the lamp for your next step. It whispers, "Keep walking. You're not abandoned." In the quiet, God strengthens unseen parts of your soul: endurance, patience, humility, and hope. Each trial is a classroom where divine wisdom teaches lessons that ease can never teach. Romans 5:3-4 reminds you, "We also glory in our sufferings, because we know that suffering produces perseverance. Perseverance, character, and character, hope." Every difficulty becomes an invitation to grow deeper roots. Sometimes the valley feels endless, but it's never purposeless. Shadows can't exist without light nearby. Even when everything feels dim, divine presence is closer than your breath. You may not hear a voice or see a sign, but stillness itself becomes proof. Silence doesn't mean absence. Just as seeds grow in darkness before breaking into light, your strength is forming quietly beneath the weight of this moment. When fear tries to convince you that you're stuck, remember that valleys are transitional spaces, not destinations. They lead somewhere higher. The shepherd who walks with you never loses direction. The Lord will guide you always. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. Isaiah 58:11. That means even here, in confusion or fatigue, provision flows unseen, a peace that steadies, a whisper that guides, a hand that never lets go. Faith in the valley is different from faith in the light. It's raw, fragile, honest. It's not about reciting perfect prayers, but about staying present when your heart trembles. Sometimes faith sounds like a sigh, a tear, or a single word, "Help," and heaven hears it. God's compassion doesn't require eloquence. It responds to sincerity. Every valley eventually gives way to rising ground. You may not know how or when, but morning always finds those who keep walking. And when you finally look back, you'll see that what felt like isolation was actually transformation. You'll realize the footprints beside yours were never imaginary. They were evidence of love guiding you through shadows into sunlight. So keep walking, not because the road is easy, but because the one guiding you is faithful. Even when your steps are slow, you're still moving forward. The valley is not your end. It's your preparation for higher ground. Every ending the world calls final is only a pause in God's vocabulary. When everything you depended on seems to crumble, heaven begins to rebuild from unseen foundations. The breaking is never meant to destroy, it is meant to redefine. Those who hope in the Lord will renew their strength. They will soar on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. Isaiah 40:31. Renewal is not the return of what was lost. It is the birth of something stronger, wiser, and rooted in grace. There are seasons when exhaustion makes faith feel small. You've given your best, prayed with all your heart, yet answers seem distant. Still, beneath the fatigue, divine energy stirs. Strength doesn't always return as a rush of power. Sometimes it arrives as quiet resilience, the ability to stand, breathe, and believe again. God doesn't just restore your energy, He renews your purpose. The parts of you that once felt fragile begin to glow with a new steadiness. Think of a tree after winter. Branches stripped bare, roots hidden under cold soil. From the outside, it looks lifeless. But within, life is reorganizing, preparing to bloom again. That's how divine renewal works. While the world sees stillness, heaven sees preparation. The silence before the song, the pause before the promise. The righteous will flourish like a palm tree. They will grow like a cedar of Lebanon. Psalm 92:12. Growth is not rushed. It unfolds quietly, powerfully, inevitably. God's restoration rarely mirrors your expectations. He doesn't always replace what you lost. Sometimes He reveals that you never needed it to begin with. Renewal means transformation, trading sorrow for wisdom, fear for clarity, and loss for deeper intimacy with His presence. Every disappointment that tried to break you becomes material for a stronger foundation. When you feel too weak to rise, remember that even eagles rest before they soar. Strength is not found in constant motion, but in surrender, in allowing divine breath to lift you again. You don't have to force your recovery. You simply have to remain open to it. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Psalm 73:26. Weakness doesn't disqualify you. It invites grace to prove its power. There will be mornings when joy feels faint, when your hands shake, and when your prayers are only whispers. Yet those are the very moments when renewal takes root. Every sigh becomes a seed of faith. Every tear carries the beginning of transformation. The light may seem dim, but it's growing. And soon you'll see that what felt like the end was only the beginning of a new dawn. As you stand in this chapter, remember that your journey has not been in vain. The strength rising in you now is not borrowed. It's built. It carries the wisdom of everything you've endured. It doesn't shout. It radiates quietly from within. You're no longer fighting for survival. You're learning how to live renewed, fearless, and free. Hope is not something you stumble upon by chance. It's something you nurture through faith, patience, and remembrance. Every dawn that breaks is proof that God still keeps His promises, that no night can last forever, and that every silence eventually gives way to song. Psalm 27:13-14 becomes the anthem for hearts that refuse to give up. I remain confident of this. I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord. Those words were born from battle, not ease, yet they breathe the unshakable truth that hope will always rise again. When your soul remembers this, even sorrow becomes holy. What once felt like loss begins to shimmer with meaning. Every unanswered prayer, every tear, every delayed dream becomes evidence that you were being carried, not forgotten. The same God who held the psalmist through fear and danger now holds you through every transition. Hope is not fragile, it's eternal. It has survived floods, wars, silence, and centuries. And still it rises in your heart each morning. There were days when you thought your faith was gone, yet somehow you still whispered His name. That whisper was hope refusing to die. It's not loud or dramatic. It lives quietly, steady as breath. Romans 15:13 declares, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in Him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." This is not human optimism. It's divine endurance. It doesn't deny pain. It declares that love and purpose outlast it. You are not the same person who entered this season. You have changed in ways that only the light of faith can explain. You've learned that real strength is tender, that real courage can cry, and that real hope doesn't fade. It deepens. You've discovered that even brokenness can become a form of worship when placed in God's hands. He takes your fragments and crafts something far more beautiful than before. The journey through Psalm 27 is not about avoiding darkness. It's about finding light within it. The Lord is not just your protector, He's your renewal. Every sunrise is His reminder that grace renews daily, that mercy has no expiration, and that love remains stronger than every fear. The same God who lit the first morning still lights this one, and He's not finished writing your story. So lift your gaze, let your heart breathe freely again. You don't walk alone, you never did. The same presence that guided you through valleys will guide you into higher ground. Hope has not been lost, it has been refined, purified, and made stronger within you. From this day forward, carry it as a lamp, a promise, and a companion. Because wherever life leads next, His goodness will surely follow. If this message brought peace or strength to your morning, write below, "Hope still lives in me." Let this space shine with testimonies of faith and light.